Commander Lee Tiemann walked through the busy halls of New Seoul Station. The space station floated near the edge of human space, far from Earth, but close to many alien worlds. Every day, ships from different planets came here to trade and talk. Tiemann liked his job as head of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. For 50 years, humans had been known as the peaceful ones in the galaxy. The morning was like any other. Tiemann stopped at the medical bay to see Dr. Park Minji. She was looking at samples from the latest alien visitors. Her lab was full of strange plants and materials from worlds he had never seen. "Good morning, Minji," Tiemann said as he entered. "How are our guests from the Vexstar system?" Dr. Park looked up from her microscope. Her eyes were tired but kind. "They are doing well. Their insect bodies are amazing. They can heal from wounds that would kill most species. But they are very worried about something." "Worried about what?" "They keep asking if we have heard any strange signals from the outer rim. When I ask what kind of signals, they just shake their heads and walk away." Tiemann thought about this. The Vextar were usually very open about their concerns. They looked like giant ants, but were very smart and honest. If they were keeping secrets, something was wrong. He left the medical bay and went to the docking area. Captain Ko Jingwoo was there, checking his ship. The Harmony's Dream was a big cargo vessel that carried goods between human and alien worlds. Jingwoo had been flying ships for 30 years and knew space better than most. "Jingwoo, have you heard anything strange on your routes?" Tiemann asked. The captain stopped working and looked at him. "Strange how?" The Vexstar seemed worried about signals from the outer rim. Jingwoo was quiet for a moment. "Now that you mention it, yes. Last week, I was near the Mordaxi crystal worlds. Their ships were moving in groups, which they never do. And the Plen Theta gas beings canceled 3 trading meetings. They said they needed to prepare for darkness, whatever that means." Tiemann felt a cold feeling in his stomach. All the major alien species were acting strange at the same time. This was not normal. He went back to his office and looked at the star maps on his wall. Humans controlled a small part of the galaxy compared to other species. They had maybe 200 worlds, while the Vexstar had thousands. But humans were respected because they had ended the Great Galactic War 60 years ago. The war had been terrible. The Vexstar, Mordaxi, and Plen Theta had been fighting for resources and territory. Millions had died. Then humans had arrived with their diplomatic ships and somehow convinced everyone to stop fighting. The peace treaty was signed on Earth, and humans became known as the great peacemakers. Most people had forgotten that humans had been different before the war. Old stories said they had been fighters once, but Tiemann never believed those tales. Humans were doctors, teachers, and traders now. They built hospitals and schools on alien worlds. They helped everyone get along. His computer made a sound. A new message had arrived. Tiemann opened it and saw it was marked as high priority. The sender was listed as unknown. The message was short and full of static. "This is Baekdu Station. If anyone receives this, we need help. They're coming back. The Devourers return. Humanity's children call for the old ways. Please, awaken the war god before it is too late." The message ended there. Tiemann played it again, but the words were the same. Baekdu Station. He knew that name from somewhere. He searched his computer files and found it. Baekdu Station had been a human colony in the Outer Rim. It was built 40 years ago, but had gone silent 30 years later. Everyone thought the colonists had died in an accident or left for another world. The station was marked as abandoned in all the official records, but someone was still there. Someone who knew about things that most humans had forgotten. What were the Devourers? And what did they mean by awaken the war god? Tiemann called Dr. Park and Captain Jinwoo to his office. When they arrived, he played the message for them. "This is impossible," Dr. Park said. "Baekdu Station has been empty for 30 years. Maybe not," Jinwoo said. "I have heard stories from old spacers. They say some colonies kept going in secret, far from the trade routes. But why would they hide?" Teeman asked. "Maybe they had a good reason," Jinwoo replied. Teeman looked at the star map again. Baekdu Station was in the void sector, an area that most ships avoided. This space there was full of radiation and dead stars. No one went there anymore. "We have to go," Teeman said. "That is crazy," Dr. Park said. "The Galactic Council will not allow it. Humans are not supposed to leave their assigned sectors without permission." "Then we do not tell them," Teeman replied. The three friends looked at each other. They had worked together for years and trusted each other completely. But this was different. This could change everything. "If there are people out there who need help, we have to try," Teeman said. "It is what humans do." That evening, they began making plans. Jinwoo would prepare his ship for a long journey into dangerous space. Dr. Park would gather medical supplies and equipment. Teeman would find experts who might know more about the mysterious message dot as Teeman worked late in his office. He kept thinking about the words in the message. "Awaken the war god." What could that mean? Humans had no war gods. They were peaceful people who solved problems with words, not weapons. But deep in his mind, something stirred. A memory from old history classes about the time before the peace. Stories his grandfather had told him about humans who fought in ways that scared even themselves. Tales that seemed like myths but might have been real. The message had called them humanity's children. As if the people on Baekdu Station remembered something that the rest of humanity had chosen to forget. Outside his window, the stars looked the same as always. But Teeman knew that somewhere in that darkness, something was waiting. Something that had made the alien species nervous and had driven a lost human colony to send a desperate cry for help. Tomorrow, they would begin the journey to find out what it was. And maybe they would discover things about humanity that were better. Left buried. 3 days later, the Harmony's dream left New Seoul Station quietly. Captain Ko Jinwoo had told the port authority they were going on a routine supply run to the border colonies. No one questioned this. Humans were trusted to go where they said. They would go, but they were not going to any normal colony. They were heading into the void sector, where space itself seemed angry, and Dark Dot Commander Lee Teeman sat in the ship's small meeting room with 2 new people he had found. Colonel Yu Sung-won was an old man who had once been a soldier, back when humans still had soldiers. Now he worked as a historian, keeping records of the old days. He had gray hair and quiet eyes that had seen too much. The other person was Engineer Shin Yona, a young woman who knew about old human technology. She was one of the few people who still studied the machines humans had built before they became peaceful. "Tell me about Baekdu Station," Teeman said to Colonel Yu. The old man looked at his hands. "It was built as a research station, officially. But I helped design it. It was really a listening post, meant to watch the far edges of space for threats." "What kind of threats?" "The kind that might come from outside our galaxy," Yu said quietly. "There were always stories, even then, about things in the dark between galaxies. Things that ate worlds and left nothing behind." Dr. Park Minji shivered. "You mean like the devourers in the message?" "Maybe. We never found proof, but some colonies reported strange ships that did not match any known species. Ships that seemed to be scouting, looking for something." Engineer Shin spoke up. "I have been looking at the old files. Baekdu Station was not just a listening post. It had weapons, big ones. Weapons that were supposed to be destroyed after the peace treaty." "What kind of weapons?" Teeman asked. "The kind that could crack planets," Shin said. The kind that made other species afraid of us, back when they were afraid. Captain Jinwoo called from the bridge. We are approaching the void sector. You might want to see this. They all went to the bridge and looked at the screens. Space ahead of them looked wrong. The stars were dim and scattered. There were clouds of dust and gas that glowed with strange colors, and in the distance something was flashing a weak light. That is Baekdu Station, Jinwoo said. But it should not be there. According to the maps, it was destroyed. The maps were wrong, Colonel Yu said, or they were changed to hide the truth. As they got closer, they could see the station clearly. It was built inside a large asteroid, hidden from casual view. Parts of it were damaged, but it was definitely alive. Ships moved around it, small fighters that looked like nothing Teeman had ever seen. Those are human ships, Shin said, looking at her instruments. But the design is at least 40 years old, and they have weapons that should not exist. One of the fighters came toward them. A voice crackled over the radio. Unknown ship, identify yourself. This is restricted space. This is Captain Kao Jinwoo of the Harmony's Dream. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on, older and tired. Jinwoo? Son of Ko Myung-soo, the traitor? Yes, that was my father. How do you know him? He brought us supplies 30 years ago, before we went dark. Follow our lead ship. Do not deviate from the path. The asteroids here are full of mines. They followed the fighter through a maze of floating rocks. Teeman could see more weapons hidden in the asteroids. This was not just a hiding place. It was a fortress. The station's docking bay was much larger than it should have been. As they landed, Teeman saw people waiting for them. They wore clothes that looked like uniforms, but not like any uniforms he knew. These people looked like soldiers. An older man stepped forward as they left the ship. He was tall and had scars. On his face, his hair was white, but his eyes were sharp and alert. I am Governor Nam Dong-yoon, he said. Welcome to Baekdu Station. We have been waiting a long time for someone to answer our call. How long have you been here? Teeman asked. 30 years. 30 years of watching and waiting and fighting. Fighting who? Nam looked at him with sad eyes. Come, we will show you. But first, you must understand something. Everything you think you know about human history is a lie. We did not become peaceful because we learned to love. We became peaceful because we learned to fear ourselves. He led them through corridors that were clearly military. There were weapons on the walls and maps showing star systems Teeman did not recognize. The people they passed all looked like soldiers, even the ones who were clearly scientists or engineers. They entered a large room with a huge screen on one wall. The screen showed a map of their galaxy, but there were marks on it that made no sense. Red dots in places where there should be nothing. 30 years ago, we detected ships entering our galaxy from outside, Nam said. Ships that belonged to something we called the Devourers. They were scouts looking for inhabited worlds. What did they want? Dr. Park asked. Everything. They consume entire worlds, break them down into basic matter, and use it to build more ships. They have eaten entire galaxies, and now they have found ours. Another person entered the room. She was a woman in her 50s, wearing a uniform with stars on the shoulders. She walked like someone who had been in many battles. This is General Song Shai-won, Nam said. She commands our defense forces. General Song looked at the visitors with hard eyes. You came in a merchant ship with no weapons. You dress like diplomats and traders. You have forgotten what humans used to be. What did we used to be? Teeman asked. The most dangerous species the galaxy had ever seen, Song replied. We were so good at war that we scared ourselves into hiding it. But some of us remembered. Some of us stayed ready. She pressed a button, and the screen changed. It showed images of battles in space. Human ships fighting against something that looked like living metal. Ships that moved like animals and ate other ships. We have been fighting them for 30 years, Song said. Small battles, hit and run attacks, trying to slow them down. But they are learning. They are getting stronger. And now they have found the main inhabited systems. How long do we have? Colonel Yu asked. 6 months, Nam replied. Maybe less. When they arrive in force, nothing the Galactic Council has will stop them. The Vextar fleets will be destroyed in hours. The Mordaxi crystals will be harvested for materials. The Plen Theta will be consumed like gas in a furnace. Then we warn them, Teeman said. We tell the Council what is coming. General Song laughed. But there was no humor in it. With what proof? Stories from a station that officially does not exist? And what will they do? Their weapons cannot even hurt the Devourers. Their tactics are based on fighting other civilized species, not monsters from the void. Then, what do you suggest? Song looked at Nam, and something passed between them. A look that spoke of terrible decisions and necessary evils. We activate the old protocols, Nam said quietly. We wake up what humanity used to be. We show the galaxy why they were right to fear us, and hope they still trust us when it is over. What protocols? Shin asked. Colonel Yu answered, his voice very quiet. The ones we swore we would never use. The ones that made us the apex predators of the galaxy before we chose to become its protectors. In the silence that followed, Teeman understood that they were standing at a crossroads. Behind them lay 50 years of peace and respect from other species. Ahead lay something darker, something that might save the galaxy, but could destroy humanity's. The choice was coming, whether they wanted it or not. The journey back to Earth took 5 days. Commander Lee Taman sat in his cabin on the Harmony's Dream, staring at the data files General Song had given him. The files contained 30 years of battle records, weapon designs, and tactical analyses. That should not have existed. According to everything Teeman had learned in school, humans had given up military technology after the Great Galactic War. They had chosen to become healers and diplomats instead of fighters. But these files told a different story. Dr. Park Minji knocked on his door and entered. She looked as troubled as he felt. I have been reading the biological reports, she said, sitting down across from him. The Devourers are not just aggressive. They are perfectly designed to consume other life forms. Their ships can break down any material and turn it into more ships. They reproduce by eating entire ecosystems. How did Baekdu Station fight them? For 30 years? By using weapons that work differently than anything the current galaxy knows. Weapons that attack the basic structure of matter itself. Weapons that... She paused. Weapons that could destroy solar systems if used wrongly. Teeman closed the files. Colonel Yu says we need to warn Earth immediately. But I keep thinking about what will happen when people learn the truth. What truth? That our peaceful nature was a lie. That somewhere in human space, there are still people who remember how to be monsters. When they reached Earth, Teeman went straight to the government complex in Geneva. President Qin Daesung was a kind man who had spent his life working for peace between species. His office was full of gifts from alien worlds and pictures of diplomatic meetings. Commander Teeman, the president said, I received your emergency message. What is this about a lost colony? Teeman played the recording from Baekdu Station and showed him the data files. As the president read, his face grew pale. This cannot be real, President Kim said. We destroyed all our military technology. We signed treaties. We signed treaties about the technology everyone knew about. Colonel Yu said from the doorway. He had been waiting outside, but some technology was hidden, kept secret in case it was ever needed again. The president stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the peaceful city below. If this is true, then everything we have built is based on a lie. Not a lie, Colonel Yu replied. A choice. We chose to become peaceful. But we also chose to stay ready, just in case. Ready for what? For this day. The day when being peaceful would not be enough to protect the people we care about. 3 hours later, they sat in a secure meeting room deep under the government building. The people around the table were not the usual diplomats and trade officials. They were people Tiemann had never seen before, men and women who looked like they had spent their lives preparing for war. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo sat at the head of the table. He was supposed to be retired, running a small shipping company. But the way he carried himself made it clear he had never really stopped being a soldier. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Choi said, the awakening protocol is now active. For 50 years, we have maintained the fiction that humanity abandoned its military nature. Today, that fiction ends. A woman across the table spoke up. She was introduced as Dr. Lim Jiang, a quantum weapons researcher who is supposed to be working on peaceful energy projects. Our weapon systems have been maintained and improved over the decades, Dr. Lim said. We have technologies that the current galaxy cannot even imagine. But using them will change how every species sees us. They will fear us, President Kim said quietly. They will fear us, Admiral Choi agreed. But they will also understand that we are the only ones who can protect them. Agent Kang Subin, a woman with cold eyes and a dangerous smile, opened a briefcase full of documents. We have maintained contact with military cells throughout human space. They have been disguised as research stations, cargo companies, and mining operations. At my signal, they will reveal their true nature. Tiemann felt like he was in a dream. Everything he thought he knew about humanity was crumbling around him. How many ships? He asked. The silent fleet consists of 2,000 warships, Admiral Choi replied. They have been hidden throughout human space, disguised as civilian vessels. Each one is more powerful than anything the Galactic Council fields. And weapons? Dr. Lim smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We have weapons that can tear holes in space itself. Weapons that can turn a star into a bomb. Weapons that can reach across the galaxy and strike a target in seconds. Why? Tiemann asked. Why keep all this secret? Colonel Yu answered. Because we learned something during the old wars. We learned that humans are very good at killing. Too good. We scared ourselves with what we could do, so we chose to hide it. But we never threw it away, because we knew that someday something would come that only we could stop. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made, orders were given, and systems that had been dormant for decades began to wake up. Across human space, cargo ships began to shed their faked outer hulls, revealing weapons and armor underneath. Research stations activated defense systems that could destroy entire fleets. Mining operations revealed themselves to be military bases, but the most shocking revelation came near the end of the meeting. There is something else you need to know, Admiral Choi said. The technology we have hidden is not the most dangerous thing we possess. What do you mean? President Kim asked. I mean that our greatest weapon is not our ships or our guns. It is the way we think. Other species fight with honor, with predictable tactics, with rules they follow, even in desperate situations. Humans do not. Agent Kang opened another file. When we need to win, we will do anything. We will sacrifice our own ships to destroy the enemy. We will use the enemy's strengths against them. We will lie, cheat, and steal if it saves lives. Other species call this dishonorable. We call it survival. The galaxy is about to remember why they used to have nightmares about us, Admiral Choi said. And when the Devourers arrive, they will learn that there are worse things than being consumed. They will learn what it means to fight a species that views war as an art form. As the meeting ended, Tiemann walked outside into the evening air. The city looked the same as always, peaceful and quiet. But he knew that beneath the surface, ancient machines were stirring to life. In hidden bases, soldiers who had trained in secret for decades were preparing for war. Ships that had pretended to be harmless were revealing weapons that could crack worlds. The transformation had begun. Humanity was remembering what it used to be, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Choi found him there, looking up at the stars. Having second thoughts, Commander? The Admiral asked. I keep thinking about the other species, Tiemann replied. They trust us. They think we are gentle and kind. What will they think when they see what we really are? They will think we are terrifying, Admiral Choi said. And they will be right. But they will also understand that we are terrifying for them, not to them. We are not becoming monsters. We are revealing that we have always been monsters, but monsters that chose to protect rather than destroy. That night, the first transmission went out to every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet. It was short and simple. This is Admiral Choi Hoon-woo of the Terran Strategic Command. The awakening protocol is active. Remember who we were. Remember who we are. The war god stirs, and the galaxy will see our fury. Across human space, the response was immediate. 50 years of careful disguise fell away in hours. The peaceful species that other aliens thought they knew began to show their true face, and it was a face that had haunted the nightmares of their enemies for millennia. The last war god of humanity was waking up, and nothing would ever be the same. The Devourers came like a plague of metal and hunger. They arrived at the edge of Vextar space 3 weeks early, their scout ships moving faster than any computer model had predicted. The first world to die was Kepler-7, a Vextar mining colony with 12 million inhabitants. It took the Devourers 6 hours to consume everything. The planet's surface, its oceans, its atmosphere, even the orbital stations around it. When they were done, nothing remained but empty space and a cloud of basic particles that the Devourers used to build more ships. The news reached the Galactic Council within hours. Emergency sessions were called. The combined fleets of all species began moving toward the threat. But Admiral Choi Hoon-woo, watching from his command ship, knew they were already too late. Sir, Captain Woo Jong-min reported from the Bridge of the Eternal Fury. The Vextar Third Fleet is engaging the enemy at Rigel Station. Put it on screen, the Admiral ordered. The battle was terrible to watch. The Vextar fought bravely, there. Insect-like ships swarming around the much larger Devourer vessels. But their weapons barely scratched the enemy hulls. The Devourer ships moved like living things, flowing around the Vextar attacks and striking back with weapons that dissolved. Matter at the molecular level. In 20 minutes, the Third Fleet was gone. 300 ships and their crews, consumed and converted into raw materials for the enemy. Fleet Admiral Chun Tae-young is requesting permission to engage, Captain Wu reported. Denied, Admiral Choi said. Not yet. Let them see what they are facing first. It was a cold decision, but necessary. The galaxy needed to understand that their normal tactics would not work against this enemy. They needed to be desperate enough to accept help from humanity, no matter what form that help took. The Devourers moved deeper into galactic space. They consumed the Mordaxi crystal farms at Alpha Centauri b, turning the beautiful singing crystals into ship armor. They devoured the gas beings of Plen Theta at Barnard Star, using their essence to power engines that bent space and time. The Galactic Council's combined fleet met them at the Battle of Wolf. 359. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from every major species converged on the system, determined to stop the invasion. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, the Galactic Council had lost 90% of their forces. The Devourers had lost perhaps 20 ships out of thousands. That night, as refugee ships fled in all directions, Admiral Choi received a priority message from the Galactic Council. It was from High Counselor Zixstar of the Vexstar, the nominal leader of galactic civilization. Admiral Choi, the insect being said, its voice translated through electronic speakers. We request immediate assistance from the Terran Strategic Command. We are prepared to accept any terms you may require. Admiral Choi looked around his command center. His staff, men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment, waited for his orders. These were not the gentle humans. The galaxy knew. These were predators awakening from a long sleep. Send a message to all human fleets, he said. Operation Ragnarok begins now. Across human space, the transformation completed itself. The merchant ship Harmony's Dream shed its cargo pods and revealed fusion torpedoes that could crack moons. Research stations unfolded into battle platforms armed with weapons that fired condensed black holes. Mining ships became destroyers that could punch holes through enemy hulls with focused gravity beams. But the real shock came when the silent fleet revealed itself. 2,000 warships materialized from empty space, their stealth fields dropping, to show vessels that looked like they had been built by gods of war. Each ship was a work of art and terror, designed not just to destroy enemies, but to break their will to fight. Captain Wu Zhongmin commanded the Eternal Fury, humanity's most advanced battleship. It was 5 kilometers long and armed with weapons that most species thought were impossible. As he led his squadron toward the first Devourer fleet, he felt the weight of 50 years of hidden preparation. Sir, his weapons officer reported, target acquired. Devourer hive ship at maximum range. Fire the quantum disruptor, Captain Wu ordered. The weapon fired without visible effect, but a second later, the enemy ship simply stopped existing. The beam had reached across space and unraveled the bonds holding the ship's atoms together. Where there had been a massive vessel full of death and hunger, there was now only empty space. The other Devourer ships turned toward this new threat, their sensors trying to understand what had happened. But before they could react, the human fleet was among them. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved with a precision that seemed impossible, their AI systems calculating trajectories and weapon impacts thousands of times per second. They fought not with honor or glory, but with a cold efficiency that made the Devourer's own ruthlessness look amateur. Colonel Han Soyang led the Fenrir Battalion in ground operations on Vexstar worlds that had been partially consumed. Her soldiers wore armor that made them faster, stronger, and deadlier than any other species. But more importantly, they fought with tactics that other species found disturbing. They used Devourer technology against them, turning captured weapons into traps. They studied enemy movements and predicted their actions with uncanny accuracy. When facing overwhelming odds, they would sacrifice themselves to take out key targets, showing a dedication to victory that scared even their allies. "Ma'am," Sergeant Li Sungjai reported as they secured a Vexstar city, "the enemy is retreating from this sector. They seem confused by our tactics." "Good," Colonel Han replied. "Confusion is fear, and fear makes them vulnerable. The Devourers are used to fighting prey. They do not know how to fight other predators." The tide of the war began to turn. At the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Fleet Admiral Chun Taeyang used a tactic that became legendary. He allowed the Devourers to surround his fleet and activated weapons that turned his own ships into bombs. The explosion destroyed a Devourer fleet 10 times larger than his own, and Admiral Chun's sacrifice became a symbol of human determination. But it was Dr. Park Minji who made the most important discovery. Working with captured Devourer technology, on a research station that had once pretended to study peaceful energy, she found something unexpected. "Commander Taman," she called over the communications link, "you need to see this. The Devourers are not just mindless destroyers. They are running from something." Running from what? I do not know yet. But their ship designs show adaptations for extreme speed and stealth. These are not the ships of conquerors. These are the ships of refugees. The revelation changed everything. If the Devourers were fleeing from something even worse, then destroying them might not solve the problem. It might just delay it. Admiral Choi made a decision that surprised everyone. Instead of pressing the attack, he ordered his fleets to capture Devourer command ships intact. Using techniques that bordered on torture, human interrogation specialists began extracting information from the alien minds. What they learned was terrifying. The Devourers came from a galaxy that had been consumed by something called the Entropy Swarm, beings of pure destruction that existed only to unmake reality itself. The Devourers had become consumers in a desperate attempt to stay ahead of the swarm, eating entire civilizations to fuel their flight. "They are not evil," Dr. Park reported. "They are desperate. They consume others because the alternative is being consumed themselves. And now they are leading the entropy swarm toward our galaxy." Admiral Choi said the war against the Devourers had been won, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's ultimate predator, but now they faced a choice. They could destroy the Devourers and wait for the entropy swarm to arrive, or they could find another way. It was time to decide what kind of monsters they wanted to be. The final battle took place at the galactic core, where space itself bent and twisted around the massive black hole called Sagittarius A. The Devourers had built their last stronghold there, using the black hole's energy to power weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Judgment Day, watching the enemy fortress grow larger on the screens. Around him, the combined fleets of every species in the galaxy waited for his orders. But everyone knew the outcome depended on what humanity chose to do. "Sir," Captain Lee Sung-jae reported from his station, "Dr. Yoon Hae-jin is ready with the final weapon." Admiral Choi nodded. Dr. Yoon had spent the last 3 months building something that even other humans found frightening. It was called the reality bomb, and it could erase entire sections of space-time from existence. One shot could destroy the Devourer fortress and everything in a light-year radius around it, but it would also kill millions of Devourer young who had never chosen to become consumers. It would destroy any chance of finding a peaceful solution. And once used, it would prove to the galaxy that humans were willing to commit genocide when pushed too far. "Sir," General An Mino called from the Ground Forces Command Center, "my troops are ready for assault. We can take the fortress without using the reality bomb, but casualties will be heavy." "How heavy?" 60% minimum. "Maybe more." Admiral Choi looked at the tactical display. The Devourer fortress was defended by weapons that could melt planets. Getting close enough for a ground assault would mean watching thousands of his people die. But the alternative was becoming the kind of monster that destroyed entire species. "Admiral," a new voice interrupted. It was Commander Lee Taemin, calling from the diplomatic ship that floated near the edge of the battle formation. "We have received a response to our surrender demand." "What do they say?" "They want to negotiate." The bridge fell silent. No one had expected this. The Devourers had never shown interest in talking before. They only consumed and moved on. "Put them through," Admiral Choi ordered, the main screen to show a being that barely looked alive. It had once been something like a giant insect, but had been changed by decades of consuming other species. Parts of it were metal, parts were crystal, parts were things that human eyes could not properly see. I am Prime Consumer Gexthar, it said in a voice like breaking glass. You are the human Admiral Choi Hyun-woo. I am. We have studied your species during our battles. You fight like us, but you are not like us. You choose to protect the weak instead of consuming them. Why? Admiral Choi thought carefully before answering. This conversation could determine the fate of the galaxy. Because we learned that being strong means protecting others, not destroying them. But you could destroy us. We know about your reality. Bong. We know you have weapons that could unmake our entire fleet. Yet you offer us surrender instead of death. Again, why? Because we know what you are running from. We know about the entropy swarm. The alien made a sound that might have been. Surprise, you know of the swarm? We know they consume entire galaxies. We know they are following you here. And we know that destroying you will not stop them from coming. Then you understand our desperation. We consume others because we must stay ahead of the swarm. It is the only way to survive. Admiral Choi leaned forward. There is another way. What way? You stop running. You stop consuming. And you help us fight them. The alien was quiet for a long time. Around the bridge, human officers waited tensely. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. You would trust us? Prime Consumer Gexthar finally asked. After what we have done to your galaxy? We would give you a chance to become something better than what desperation made you. And if we refuse? Admiral Choi's voice became hard as steel. Then we will show you why the galaxy used to have nightmares about humanity. We will unleash weapons that will make your worst fears look like pleasant dreams. We will hunt down every one of your kind, and we will not stop until you are nothing but particles floating in empty space. But if we accept, then we help you remember what you were before you became consumers. We help you find a way to fight the swarm without becoming monsters yourselves. The alien considered this. You would do this for us? Even after we killed billions of your allies? We would do it because it is right. And because we understand what it means to be afraid of what you might become. Prime Consumer Gexthar made a decision that changed galactic history. We surrender. Not because we fear your weapons, but because we choose to trust your mercy. The surrender of the Devourers was just the beginning. Over the following months, human scientists worked with Devourer technicians to find new ways to fight the approaching entropy swarm. The aliens who had once consumed entire worlds began learning to create instead of destroy. It was not easy. Many Devourers could not change and had to be contained. Many species in the galaxy could not forgive the destruction that had been caused. But slowly, carefully, a new alliance was built. Dr. Park Minji led the project to help Devourers return to their original forms. It was difficult work, undoing decades of biological changes, but it was possible. The beings who emerged were not the monsters who had attacked the galaxy, but the original species that had once built beautiful cities and created amazing art. Captain Wu Zhongmin commanded the joint fleets that patrolled the galactic rim, watching for signs of the entropy swarm. His ships carried both human weapons and reformed Devourer technology, creating defenses that neither species could have built alone. Colonel Han Soyoung trained mixed units of humans, Devourers, and other species, teaching them to fight with the tactical flexibility that had made humanity so effective. Her soldiers learned to think like humans, to adapt and overcome any obstacle. And at the center of it all, Admiral Choi Hyun-woo became something that had never existed before, the commander of a truly galactic military force. united not by conquest, but by the shared need to protect their home. When the entropy swarm finally arrived, 5 years later, they found something they had never encountered before. Instead of scattered, frightened civilizations, they found a galaxy united in purpose. Instead of prey running in panic, they found predators ready for war. The battle lasted 3 days and covered half the galaxy. In the end, the entropy swarm was not destroyed, but driven back to the void between galaxies. The Alliance held, and the galaxy was safe. Commander Lee Tiemann returned to his diplomatic post on New Sol Station. But now when alien ambassadors came to visit, they looked at him with different eyes. They still saw the gentle, kind human they had always known. But they also saw the hint of something else, something that could become terrible if awakened. Galaxy had learned the truth about humanity. They were not peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they were strong enough to choose peace over war, mercy over vengeance, protection over conquest. The war god of humanity slept again, but it would never be forgotten. In the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, keeping watch for threats that might require its awakening. And on 1,000 worlds, alien children learned stories about the species that had saved them all by remembering what it meant to be both monster and guardian. The SOS from Baekdu Station had awakened more than just human fury. It had awakened humanity's true nature, the courage to be strong for others, the wisdom to know when force was necessary, and the mercy to offer redemption even to enemies. In the end, that had been enough to save not just the galaxy, but the soul of humanity itself. The stars shone peacefully in the darkness, protected by those who had learned that the greatest strength was knowing when not to use it.